Hi, everyone. It's Paula Edgar, and welcome back to Branding Room Only. This episode is a part of my Rewind series, and it's one of the most personal I've ever shared. It features a conversation with my father, Peter L. Griffith, about my mother, Joan Donna Griffith, who was killed in the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. Each year around this time, I re-release this episode to honor her life and legacy. And this year, 2025, marks something deeply sobering. It has now been 24 years since my mother died. I was 24 when she was killed. That means that after this September 11th, I will have officially lived more of my life without her than I did with her. That realization hit hard. But with it came a deeper truth. Even though our time together was short, my mother's influence was and still is powerful. Her values, her brilliance, her humor, her style, her strength, I carry all of that with me, and I share it with others. And that's why I'll continue to release this episode every year, because my mother's legacy is not just something I remember, it's something I live. So let's get into the conversation. Welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast, where we share career stories, strategies, and lessons learned on how industry leaders and influencers have built their personal brands. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everybody. It's Paula Edgar, host of Branding Room Only, and I'm excited today to be doing a special episode of the podcast featuring one of the people who has shaped my brand and had me become an influencer and influence my life. And I'm so excited to be talking to my father, Peter L. Griffith, on today's podcast. Daddy, introduce yourself to the Branding Room Only audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter L. Griffith. I was born in Barbados. I came to the United States when I was 14 years old. And it's a long story. By the way, the book won't be out for a while, but you know.
Yeah, that'll be the next episode. So where did you come to when you got off of the plane from Barbados?
So coming into JFK, dressed up in a jacket and a tie and slacks, and looking out the window and seeing the swimming pools, because the plane, I guess, came over Long Island, and seeing the blue of the swimming pools and all the backyards and stuff, I was finally in America, the great country. And it was a wonderful sight. It didn't match the house that I ended up going to in what was then Ocean Hill, Brownsville. I think that was what it was called, on Chauncey Street, 634 Chauncey Street, to be exact. First thing that hit me was the smell of the house. It smelled, and I've never experienced a smell like that before, because it was different from what I expected. Well, not what I expected, but what I was accustomed to in the Caribbean.
So just for the audience's sake, the address that Dad just gave was in Brooklyn, which is, I think, the most important part of this, which is the best borough. You all know that I am not at all shy about the fact that I love Brooklyn and it's my favorite borough. And so growing up in Brooklyn, as a teenager, you then went to high school in East New York.
No, I went to junior high school first.
Oh, right.
I went to junior high school, IS 271, John M. Herkimer High School, John M. Coleman, I think, High School on Herkimer Street in Ocean Hill, Brownsville is what they called it then.
Okay. All right. Then
I graduated that from junior high, which was a horrendous experience for a Barbadian kid with a very thick accent who was brought up in schools that required you to raise your hand when you wanted to speak, and you had to call the teachers sir and ma'am and stuff like that. And then go into a junior high school where it seemed like chaos because the kids were just wild. But it was a pretty horrific experience to me. Kids can be very mean, especially when you're different. And I was very different. So leaving junior high school, high school was a dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the kids were more civilized, and I met a lot of other kids who were from the West Indies also.
Mm-hmm.
And I no longer felt alone, because I felt very alone in junior high school, because the people, I guess, who were West Indians weren't identifying themselves as West Indians.
But that's interesting, because when you think about, and I always try to tie things back on the podcast to what your brand is, and to think about how popular the Caribbean experience is now versus back then, when it was, you know, you were just in another group of immigrants that were coming into this country, and having an accent and being different was not necessarily cherished in the way it is now.
No, it wasn't, because the kids told me that we were taking their jobs. I didn't really understand that, because my mother worked as a maid. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand that at all, but, you know, it is what it is. It was difficult.
Okay, so then high school.
High school was, like I said, high school was a dream. In high school, I found myself in junior high school because I started to blossom as a student, something which I was not good at in Barbados. I was really, I would say that I was a C- student in Barbados. And I came into junior high school and found myself doing A work. I think they put me back a grade, which was the best thing they probably could have done for me. And that, I mean, I was unbelievable in junior high school. And when I think about my experience in high school, it was wonderful. It was fun. After my first semester, I had like 86 or 87, you know, average. And they asked me if I wanted to join a special program for kids that were doing well. And that's how I joined what was then called College Discovery. And that was really an experience, because that meant that I was then with kids who were really interested in learning all the time. We had double periods of math and English, and I think I did pretty well in high school. Only failed one class, and I blamed a young lady whose name is Jacqueline Isaacs. I don't know where she is now, but
calling people's name out.
I'm sorry.
Poor Jacqueline.
I blame her, because we were sitting in the back of the class, and I talked to her a lot, and I failed the Regents, but they could have passed me in the class, and they didn't. So that was the only class I failed in high school.
This is an interesting revelation, because I definitely know that there was times when I was young where I was told that I should not be talking to the back of class, and I should be focusing. But that's a whole nother story. I'll talk about that in therapy. Anyway, so then as you progress through high school, and the interesting piece about you saying that you were in this College Discovery is that, given what the Supreme Court has done recently, that probably would have been considered a program that was a pipeline program leading into college to bring inner city people of color. But that's
basically it was. Basically it was.
Yeah.
And the interesting about it was that, you know, they gave us a foundation, but the foundation was not good, because when I got to Brooklyn College, am I allowed to say Brooklyn College?
Of course you're allowed to say Brooklyn College. That's where you went.
When I got to Brooklyn College, I was totally overmatched, because the kids that were there knew a whole lot more about lots of different things that I didn't get. I wasn't exposed to in high school. But, you know, I dragged myself through college, and thankfully I graduated.
So, I mean, I guess
I must say, with a degree in history, with a mind in education. Okay. Okay.
All right, relax. so you know, there was a milestone that we skipped, which is me. There. So everybody, a little preface for what you should and shouldn't do in high school is that in the meantime, in the between time, I was born. So
77 February.
You don't have to talk about the years. Relax.
February 14th. Can I do that then?
There you go. Valentine's baby.
Yes. It was one of the best moments of my life. Yeah.
Daddy. For those of you who have not sort of checked into my background or have even heard me talk about how I was raised, et cetera, that you should know that I have my biological mother, obviously, who gave birth to me, was who we were talking about, who my father was with at that time in high school.
Yes.
And then we'll move on to talk about who raised me. And I think that's the crux of what I wanted to get to in terms of this story. So let's fast forward a little bit. So
Okay.
you then had a young child that you had to take care of.
Yes.
And then you had to go to work.
My mother had told me that as long as I was in college, she would take care of me in terms of, what my needs. And all of a sudden, here I am with a pregnant girlfriend, and I had to go to work, and that was a horrible experience. And I say horrible in terms of I should not have been working. I should have been just concentrating on school, but I had to go to work, and I first worked in a factory. You just trying to find any job you can. I worked in a factory, which was horrible. And then I got a job working at a law firm as a clerk and a messenger and stuff like that. And that was, I got to see a side of people who were different than me, and who looked down on me because of my color. The thing was that I was raised that you are not better than me. And although they might have been lawyers, I didn't care. I was still Loretta's son. Okay.
Yeah. So. Side note on that one, because when I think about, again, bringing it back to branding and being better or not than other people, and thinking that way, I remember how important it was for my grandmother, Loretta, who you just mentioned, that we dressed a certain way. Right. And I that's been a straight line for the most part of my entire life, because I think that baton was also carried by mommy, and we're going to get into talking about her in a minute.
Can I interrupt you and say this?
Yeah, please.
My mother, Loretta. It's interesting that somebody told me, looking at their pictures online, you remind them so much of her and how she dressed. And I was like, yeah, okay. But I mean, she made sure that you had great clothes, and it was just amazing. But she did a lot in terms of helping to raise you, obviously, because I couldn't provide for you the way that I would have liked to. And she really assisted in terms of making sure that you were well dressed and looking spectacular.
Yeah. Obviously I was young because she was my grandma, but I was young, and I remember her doing two things. One, baking and cooking. And the other one was like making sure that I looked like, I remember her like fixing me. And so I had the experience of that sort of Barbados side of my family when I was growing up. But it's interesting because as I progressed later on, my Jamaican side, which both my biological mother and mommy, who we'll talk about in a minute, are both Jamaican. And so that is a very much huge part of the culture that I was cultured in, even though I only went to visit Jamaica when I turned 40. And so, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, okay. So now you worked at the law firm, and again, because your daughter's a lawyer. They're not better than you now. Anyway,
it's funny that when I left high school, well, when you gave out the information in school about high school about what you wanted to be, my high school yearbook said I wanted to be a lawyer. It's something that I seriously considered, but low expectations are a horrible thing to have. And I wanted that, but I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have somebody to explain to me what it was going to be like. And the difference in my life and yours is that you had me and mommy who had a roadmap and who could say, these are the opportunities that could be available to you. And I didn't. And neither in a sense did mommy. And I think that's one of the reasons why you were poured into the way you were. Because especially the fact that you went to Deerfield, that was us pouring into ourselves in a sense, because we both would have liked to have had that kind of experience, which is why having you go there was such a proud moment for us. I mean, it killed me in terms of how much it cost. But I look back on it now. I look back on the bills that they sent asking for their money. But I think the money was well spent. I mean, I could not have expected that you would become the person you were when you left Deerfield. Because as I go to Deerfield and hear them talk about you, we would look at each other like, this Paula? Because we know what you were like at home, and you were not like that at Deerfield at all. You were unbelievable, and everybody seemed to love you, and they were like, oh, Paula is this, and Paula is who you are now is who you were becoming at Deerfield. I mean, that's just blooming, like, and I mean, just to see the woman that you were becoming. And mommy just absolutely loved that. Of course, I must say this, that our goal in life was to get you and Joanne out of the house so we could have the house to ourselves. But that's beside the point. Let's.
Now I've been taking again that baton, because we've got now my husband and we have one kid out and we wait for the other kid to get out. I mean, we love them so much. Anyway, yes. So you talked about, and we'll skip around a little bit, but we started talking about mommy, but we haven't said who mommy is. And what I wanted to do is to kind of draw the continual line as to, you worked at the law firm, and then you worked where, and then where did you meet mommy?
Okay, so I worked at Merrill Lynch, which was then Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner and Smith, in 100 Broadway in Manhattan. And you want to know how I met her?
Yes, but keep it for the public, please.
So I was, the way how it was, the office I worked in, I could look down the hallway from where I was sitting, and I could see into another office down there. And I saw her one day, and in fact, I actually saw her on the elevator, and I was taken aback by, her obvious good looks and physical qualities.
You should have been a politician anyway.
I think I am. And I liked her. She was just beaming. She was, there was just something about her. Yeah. And a couple of days after I saw her, we were both coming out the number 5 train at Wall Street stop. No, Wall Street, no, whatever the stop was near Wall Street. And as we came through the turnstile, I saw her and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And she says, "Hi." I said, "I'm Peter from Barbados." And she said, "I'm Joan from Jamaica." It was like famous lines, I never said I was the smoothest in the world, but I went out of my way and I spoke to her, and I guess we walked to work together, and that basically was it for the beginning of our relationship, talking to each other or whatever.
So fast forward a little bit more. So you both got married in 1980.
Before I do this, let me tell you what happened. Okay. So I was seeing someone at the time. Okay. And who shall remain nameless.
Good.
And, I had a date one night, and we used to work until 9:00 at night. Just back then, there was a lot of overtime and stuff. And she worked late, and we saw each other in the hallway. And I said to her, "Would you like to go out to dinner?" And she said, "Sure." So we went to a place called the China Chalet on Broadway. And we sat down and we ate. And after that, we went over to Battery Park and we walked around a little bit, and then I said, "Can I kiss you?" And she said, "Yes." So we kissed, and I turned to her and I said, "No, I'm sure you could do better than that." That was like a 1 or 2.
Oh God.
So she did better than that. And it was, from there we were seeing each other, a lot after that. So.
Yeah. So fast forward, you get married, and you get married in 1981.
Yes.
September 5th. And at that point, I was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And so you then have a new wife.
Yes.
And I wasn't...
A new wife who was I
19.
think she was 19. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. So a new young wife.
Yes.
And I wasn't living with you yet.
No.
And so a little bit after that, let's without going into all of the details, I then moved in with you both.
Yes.
So that must have been easy.
No, it wasn't. It was difficult because, you know, her expectation was that she would have her husband and she would enjoy, you know, living without the thought of having a child anytime soon, and, you know, go out and party and stuff. We weren't big party people, but, you know, having the ability to go where you want and stuff like that was all done. For me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I say that because I wanted to raise you, because I knew that you were special from when you were younger. You were very conscious of a lot of stuff. You were very smart. And I just wanted you, I just felt that I could do a good job of raising you and making you the best version of you possible. Basically a mini me, but, you know, it's beside the point. I wanted to give you the education that I had, you know, there was something inside me about education. And that was something that drove me. And I wanted to be able to give that to you. Not just the ABCs, but as somebody who studied history, I knew I could give you a well-rounded education about life as growing up as a Black girl, a Black person in this country and stuff like that. And I wanted to do that. So it was for me a great thing. For her, it wasn't so much. But when you love someone, you stretch yourself. And so at some point, I don't know. I mean, obviously she's not here to be able to say where that moment came, with the light went on with her. And it's just like, okay, this is Peter's child and we have to deal with this. And she just embraced you as her own. And I mean, embrace you like, you know, the hug, you know, that big giant hug, you are mine now. And that was one of the best things that happened also, because then she was no longer your stepmother. Then we told you that you couldn't call her Donna anymore. You had to call her mommy. Yeah. And just like that, you started to call her mommy. And that's mommy. That's funny, because I don't remember. This is the first time I've heard you say that I called her Donna before, but I guess that makes sense. So just for everybody who's listening along, to kind of pull this through, when I say mommy, that's who I'm referring to, because that's who my mommy's who raised me. So my mother, Joan Donna Griffith, is who my father married and in 1981, and she, you know, the fact that she was 19, as I got older and understood how young she was, I think was a helpful factor in terms of us bonding, because, you know, she was very playful, right? Yeah. She was very much like, you know, it felt seamless and easy. And I remember one of the memories that I have, and I was telling my kids about this, is how soft her hands were. And that she would like lotion my legs, and I would just sit back and be like, oh, this is like the best, and without any knowledge of any other way it being. But I remember that. And when you think about like the things that your mother does, like hug you and your mother's touch and cooking and all those things, those are the things that I remember. And I wanted to kind of bring us to this conversation because mommy for us was pretty much everything. Yes. The audience and folks who are listening, and we'll see this later on, mostly only know who mommy is because of what happened to her. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so we haven't gotten to that yet, but I want to sort of preface it in that one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because many people have heard about me. I talk about mommy all the time, right? But I wanted to have the opportunity for us to talk about who mommy was for us, and to put a not just story, but some depth to her legacy, right? And who she was and how she added value and left her mark and impact on the world. And that's so important. So we know how you met her.
Tell me what are some of the favorite memories you had of those early days. Couple would be good. What comes up for you?
I think just the fact that she was smart. Mm-hmm. You know, it's good to find someone who matches you in terms of your intellectual ability. Mm-hmm. She was really, really intelligent, and she was an avid reader. Mm-hmm. And we spent many hours together reading. I reading my science fiction, she reading her romance novels. Mm-hmm. We had really good times. I mean, you know, having a 4-year-old means that there's lots of stuff you can't do. Mm-hmm. But I think the extended family of Juliet and Phyllis, and who are her sisters, mm-hmm. you know, they made it easy because we could always take you over there, mm-hmm. and they could always babysit. And when they want to go out, they can always bring their kids to us. And there was always that sense that there were always people around. There was always a family situation. But specifically, we went camping. Remember, just one particular time, just me and her. Mm-hmm. And we were new to camping, and we went to a place called Uncle Pete's in the I think in the Adirondacks, near Kingston, New York. Mm-hmm. And we got up there in my little orange Toyota Celica. I know you remember that car.
Did you?
Yes. And we went up there, and we had this little tent, wasn't very big, and it was pouring. Mm-hmm. And we found some place that was nice and dry, and we set the tent up and everything. This is the first time I think we'd ever really gone camping. Mm-hmm. And it rained like crazy. And it rained to the point where it was seeping into the tent, under the tent. We were wet. Got up in the middle of the night and went in the car and slept. I mean, the next morning we were like, okay, it's time to go home because this is it. And we drove into Kingston, and we found a laundromat. Mm-hmm. We drove back to the site and got the tent and the stuff, mm-hmm. and took it to the laundromat and washed it. And went back and found a dry place and had a really great time. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things about her is that she was very affectionate and loving. Mm-hmm. And I mean, since I'm an affectionate person, mm-hmm. we were perfect for each other in that way. You know, we were always hugging on each other, always dancing together, and, mm-hmm. you know, just touching each other. You know, it was nothing to be in the kitchen kissing each other, mm-hmm. and having people tell you to get a room, you know.
Yeah. You know, I'll take a pause there because I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn. That's where we lived for most of my childhood. And a lot of my friends didn't have a family unit that was together, a husband and a wife. And so my friends would come over and be like, A, oh my goodness, your dad's there. And then B, you know, you all would be hugging all over each other, et cetera. And I think that for so many of my friends, you were their family unit too, right? It wasn't just me understanding that that's who you all were, but them. And and that having that structure, whether, sort of adopted or not in that space, was helpful to so many people to see what they want to strive for. Yeah. Right. I knew from when I was very young that that's a family unit that I wanted. I did not want, obviously people don't necessarily want to have structure, fractured family units, but I wanted to have something similar to what you all had.
And I mean, to the point, mm-hmm. you also had Juliet and Phyllis, who also had, a male in the home also. So it was something that you saw as a normal, mm-hmm. as not an abnormal thing. So, I mean, it was never something that was, it was something you talked about, but it was just how it was. Mm-hmm. And to us, taking showers together and just being...
right. Okay. All right, Daddy. Okay. So, oh goodness. Anyway, so I want to take a quick sidestep. So, Mommy was from Jamaica.
Yes, she came to the United States, I think, when she was, I'm not even sure how old she was, but I know she went to elementary school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think she graduated a year early from Erasmus. I think she went to another high school, but she went to Erasmus for her last year and was able to come out, I think, a year earlier or 6 months earlier or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then she went to Florida State. Mm-hmm. And she was there, I think, for 2 years when she got ill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. she developed Bell's palsy. Mm-hmm. And that's how come she was back in New York. She came to New York for treatment. And while she was here, she got a job. Mm-hmm. Mind you, she had a boyfriend in Florida. But, when I came around, he was gone. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so this is like turning into a Dynasty episode. But anyway, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I wanted to just make sure that we made that connection in terms of where she come from. And and Mommy has 3 sisters, 2 brothers, Calvin and Junior, and we talked about Ruth, Juliet, and Phyllis. And so and then they all have a myriad of my cousins who are peppering the world. So because if we did this and did not mention them, we would be in trouble. So I don't want to be in trouble. And I hope to be able to do a podcast with my aunts as well at some point.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about some of the favorite memories, and I guess I'll share a couple as well. I'm glad you mentioned that Mommy loved to read, because I lament the fact that now we can read on devices, because my kids don't actually see me holding a lot of books, although I do read a lot as well. Yeah. But I was just this past weekend at Grand Army Plaza at the library, and it brought back all of these memories. I mean, I was there to see the Jay-Z exhibit, but that's another story. But it brought back all these memories of when we used to go there, and Mommy would just pack tote bags full of those Harlequin romances and other romance novels. And she read so much. Like, I would see her with a book all the time. And both of you, to your point about being avid readers, it instilled upon me that reading was something that I had to do, because there would just be times where all of us would be in a room reading.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is museums and sort of love of like the places we were. We did New York stuff, right? Which is, and I think I realized that I don't necessarily do as much New York stuff, and I didn't do as much New York stuff with my kids because they have opportunities to go other places, right? But we didn't, we weren't like, affluent, and but we did do a lot of things that were New York focused. And then when I was 8, along came my sister, and Joanne was born, and so then we had a family structure that was different. Then, I had you both to myself, and then we had, my sister, and that shifted a lot for us in terms of our family unit. So talk a little bit about that.
It obviously it creates a different dynamic, because now the focus is no longer on you. Mm-hmm. The focus is on her. And she was in the hospital because she was born 2 pounds 6 ounces. Mm-hmm.
8 ounces.
Okay, 2 pounds 8.
You're welcome.
She was in the hospital for a couple of months, and that was hard on Mommy, because she would go there every day and feed her, and with a little syringe or whatever. And she would come home, and sometimes she would cry about it because her baby was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then she came home, and everything changed, because now the focus, like I said, was no longer on you. Mm-hmm. But then you were old enough to, I guess, to understand that, now you have a little sister to play with or whatever, mm-hmm. Which I don't think you particularly like. But, kids are funny at that age, because especially when everything is about them. And now the focus is on something else.
Yes, definitely. I remember the shift. But it was interesting, because I think, at least, and again, I'm thinking of it from obviously my perspective as a young kid, but I felt like for Mommy, it felt like the unit was more whole, because then you both had a child of your own, but to that end, I never in my entire life felt as if I wasn't her child. Like, it was very much like we did Girl Scouts together. We did all of these things that we did, and it was never in my mind any question that I can remember.
To the fact that most of your cousins didn't know that you had a different mother.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So, okay. So then I go away to boarding school.
Yes.
So I went to Deerfield Academy, which my father mentioned a little bit earlier, which is in Deerfield, Massachusetts, which is in Western Mass. And it's a boarding school. So you're living there. And so I left when I was 14. And at that point, was it before? No, it was right after that. Then you all moved to New Jersey.
Yes. Yes, I don't know what year you went to boarding school, but we came up here in 92.
Yeah, I was 91 is when I went to.
So we came up here in 92. A lot of it was the neighborhood was really changing drastically.
Mm-hmm.
And mommy was like, Joanne is going to start school soon. Let's get out of here. And we in a couple of months, we moved up here.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big change for us. Now you're living in the suburbs and you have to worry about mowing the lawn and, all kinds of different stuff. And it was difficult because we were commuting every day from Willenboro, which is like, I think 90 miles away from New York or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Every day to New York, we would get up ridiculous hours of the morning and have to take the bus into the into the city. Mm-hmm. And that was it was difficult because that drive was hard on your body. But I mean, it's something we decided we wanted to do. So it wasn't a matter of we had to, it was a matter of we wanted to do this. So we did.
So that commute is something that when I think about the mommy reading books, like that's what she would be getting her stock for the week for, and then would read books and then return them back. And she would read 2 or 3 books, like going up and coming back. And
she tore those books up like crazy. She was just an unbelievable reader.
Yeah.
And the thing about it was she would not read anything else.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't read biography. She would not read it. And one of the things that people don't realize about these books is these books, because there are a lot of romance, there's a lot of them are set in Europe and different places and stuff. And that idea of going places in a book, she went lots of places and she knew lots of stuff because she read these books. I mean, you can think that you don't gain anything from reading them, but just reading them brings you information that you will not have before about how people live, how you're supposed to do things. I mean, she knew a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff from reading these books.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was most of what I saw. But in terms of the knowledge point, she also watched a lot of musicals. She she ingested a lot of information, a lot of different ways. Yes. And a part of what I remember a lot is how we love Mary Poppins. Like we loved a lot of the musicals because, that's what we would sit and watch together when I was a kid and when I was older as well, too. So I'm thinking about when I was away at boarding school in 1993. Mm-hmm. Mommy and you all were still commuting to and from New York City, Lower Manhattan to Willingboro, New Jersey. And I remember when the World Trade Center was bombed in 1993.
Yeah.
That I remember being pulled out of class, and them saying that the towers had been bombed, and I remember being up until late that night, and then calling and having a call with you all because she had finally come home. And I remember her talking about going down the stairs and her back had hurt and all that stuff. But what I remember the most from that was her saying that she was going to go back.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't at night, but it was after that. Like I remember being like, okay, well, they're bombing stuff, so let's not go back there. But I remember specifically having a conversation with her saying that she was going to go back. Mm-hmm. And so tell me about how that was on the adult side when all that happened.
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't remember much about it. Mm-hmm. It was just like a blip in our lives. Mm-hmm. I know, coming down all them stairs and stuff was difficult for her, but beyond that, it wasn't any. We didn't really have a conversation about whether she was going to go back or not. At least I don't remember. Mm-hmm. And I need you to understand that there's a lot of stuff I don't remember because there've been a lot of since obviously September the 11th. There've been a lot of brain trauma and. With that, and there's a lot of memories that I really don't have anymore.
Let's just tell the truth. Also, that mommy and I taught together every day, and I would.
Daddy would get a call when the car window wouldn't go down. Otherwise, Daddy wouldn't hear from you. But when mommy would come home and say, "Yeah, I sent her some money today," mm-hmm. And I mean, the thing about it is like whatever she did with you, mm-hmm. she would come home and tell me I did this or I did that or whatever. So we knew what was going on in terms of how things were going with you. And how she might have been helping you or whatever, which has always been a big focus in her life, you know.
Yeah. My mother, back in those days that, you had to pay per minute when you had calls and long distance, et cetera. So, but at her job, and mommy worked at Fiduciary Trust in the World Trade Center, she had an 800 number. So I was in boarding school, so I would literally call her every day, and they would put me on hold and go find her. And I love that. And she'd be like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Just to say hi." But we would talk, and she would tell me what's going on with the family, and she was really like my lifeline to what was happening otherwise, because that was before email and social media and all that stuff. So I didn't really know other than those calls. And so what I remember about that time was feeling super disconnected because something had happened, but the person who would be telling me about it normally was in it. And so and that fear that I had because it had happened there, and terrorism was something that happened in other countries, right? It wasn't anything that we worried about. We worried about like local crime as opposed to, crime that was
something.
Exactly. So let's fast forward. Well, let's talk a little bit more about, there's one question that I think that I wanted to hear your thoughts about. We kind of talked about how she was as a mother. I don't know if you want to add anything else about her as a mother for me and Joanne, et cetera, just generally.
Let's talk about you for a moment, and the fact that you wouldn't get up in the morning unless you had hot chocolate. And the hot chocolate was brought to you. I think then we had bunk beds, and you would get your hot chocolate with your eyes closed, and you would drink the hot chocolate. You would not get up unless you had the hot chocolate. You do what you have to do in order to get your kids going, and we did what we had to do. I mean, she was just so wonderful in terms of how she took care of you and took care of Joanne, and made sure everything was okay with the two of you. And she was a wonderful person, wonderful mother.
Yes, and she could cook. I mean, when I think about like the full package of a wife in the traditional roles, like she worked and she commuted and she cooked and she cleaned. Oh my goodness. She cleaned.
Yeah. So she would come home and have a meal ready in like 40 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. And she could, I mean, I would talk to her about this stuff. She could take a recipe and know what to substitute for what she didn't have or whatever. I couldn't understand a lot of that stuff, how she did it, how she knew what to substitute or whatever, but she was really good at cooking and baking and stuff like that. She was really a well-rounded person.
Yep. Yes. And, to kind of tie into what I was talking about with my grandmother, my mother was very much a dresser.
Yes.
And when I think about how, I tell my kids to, walk outside looking a certain way, and then, right. And that when I'm going to do something, I'm speaking, et cetera, that I know that I have to look a certain way. That was a direct connection to how mommy raised me, right? Whether or not I rebelled at some point, because we know that I did, I understood and knew what the parameters were. And it's a part of how I built my brand around particularly having a knowledge and understanding of how to show up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You are not going outside like that. Nope. Come back.
There was a lot of comebacks. There was a lot of comebacks, especially when we lived in Brooklyn, but it's okay. Anyway. Actually, one anecdote that I remember, speaking of dressing, was that when I went to Deerfield, I was this kid from East New York, right? But I think we had, the lower part of middle class. Yeah. Okay. But we showed up as middle and upright. And so my mother was like, you have to have penny loafers. She's like, you have to have penny loafers in order to go to boarding school because that's what they have. And then, people say you put pennies inside the penny loafers, but I remember she was like, well, we'll put 2 dimes in there because so you remember that your value. And I was like, why are we putting coins in these shoes? But when I think about it, now it was like you set a standard, right? Like that I was going to be in this place where folks had more resources, knew more, right? But that they were not better than me, right? So that same kind of connection that you talked about before. So I wanted to sort of share that because there's a lot of lessons that I learned when you talk about shaping who I am, and yes, even being here, right here now, is because of the values and the lessons and the things that mommy taught me, and that experience with both of you as my parents. Okay, so let's talk about some of the, we talked about her reading, but songs that she loved, quotes or anything.
I mean, the thing about her is she loved music from the 60s. Mm-hmm. You know, we both had love for like Beach Boys music, Beatles music. I mean, just and singing around the house, singing out loud and just, just enjoying the atmosphere in the house, because I played a lot of music. And because of that, we always had, what they say, the soundtrack of our lives. And, and it was really something, because after she died, I realized how much the music meant to our relationship. And it was hard for me to deal with that, because I did a lot of crying at my desk at work, hearing music that touched me because it was music that we shared together. There's some music now that I'm still not comfortable listening to, because it was very special to her and special to me. Mm-hmm. And she was just, like I said, a wonderful wife. And even better than that, she was a really good friend. Mm-hmm. She was a really good friend. I mean, when you have somebody who's as smart as you are, you can't come with bullshit. You have to come. I mean, she had that kind of brain where she could take something and break it down and know what to do with it. She was in many ways a lot smarter than I was, but yeah, it's mommy. Yeah. When I think about, growing up, the music was a big piece of it. And the one song that comes up whenever I think about her song, as opposed to a musical, mm-hmm. is Rainy Days and Mondays. Yes. There was something about that, I think, when she was younger. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't remember the story behind it, but that song meant a whole lot to her, mm-hmm. because I think it's a song that she might have heard, or it did something to her. I think she did a lot of cleaning on Saturday mornings to that music. And I mean, she was younger. And so it was something she always liked to hear, because it made her feel good. Yeah. Like I remember her like singing it like out loud, and it's interesting because now I hear that song and I like painted, like I'm thinking like, but it doesn't have the connection other than to her, right? It's not like I don't have whatever the deeper piece of it. Yes. But there was definitely a lot of music played out loud when I grew up. The other thing that you used to do all the time was to have there's a lot of video of our lives. And yes. And this was like before there was terabyte mini chips. It was actually video, like VHS tapes that you would just have the VCR running. And because of that, and I'm grateful for that as being part of who you are, that there's a lot of just video of us being us. Yes. I mean, one of the things is because I'm a photographer, and you get memories from looking at pictures. Mm-hmm. And one I have in particular is us going to the beach to fly a kite. Mm-hmm. And it's like the things I wanted for you, the things that I had when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we did stuff that I would have wanted to do, or I did when I was young. And that was one of the memories that really, I mean, she didn't have to come, but if we were going someplace, and that's another thing too, we were always together. We were together a lot, which is when I think about the fact that we were together for 20 years and 5 days or 6 days. We spent a lot more time than that together. I mean, you can say it's 20 years, but it was a hell of a lot more than that, because it was packed into those 20 years that we spent together. Yeah. Gosh, I just thought about the kites. I can see the pictures. And I don't want to run over that point, because when you're thinking about, I started off saying that you were instrumental on building my brand, because you were. But one of the things I'm very serious about is pictures and how they are framed and how they're structured and how people look in them. And I would say a little bit more than serious about it. I'm a little bit obsessed to my kids who do not want to take pictures, and I don't care, and I'm going to make them take pictures. But I've been documenting my entire life. Like I have pictures from when I was a baby all the way. And a lot of people can't say that. And to think about how technology has shifted during that time, that you still
number one, understood the importance of documenting. Like, I look back at those pictures and I think how lucky I am to be able to see them and know throughout those times that that it was important for you to do. And that is something that I directly attribute to you having that love too, that I have the love as well, except that I use an Android phone as opposed to an actual camera.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll get to it at some point, being an actual camera person. Okay. So there was a lot in there, to your point about it being packed. I want to, before we move on to talking about 9/11, was when you think about some of the dreams and aspirations that mommy had, what comes up?
I think she wanted to graduate college. I think that was a big thing for her. Mm-hmm. And she did go back. She went to Medgar Evers for a couple of semesters, but it's kind of tough having kids and trying to go to school at night. Mm-hmm. And that was difficult, obviously. She never did finish because we moved up here. And then that commute destroyed any chance of being able to go to school because it was basically an hour and a half each way. But I think the big thing was that she wanted you and Joanne to have a better life than she had, because I think her growing up was kind of rough. Mm-hmm. And I think she poured into you and into Joanne the values that she grew up with and the values that we share together, the values of value in education, value in family, value in fun, value in laughter, and reading, and really understanding how important education was to your success. And that was a big, big deal for her.
Every single time, I know a fact, but every single time you remind me that mommy didn't graduate, I'm always like, what? Like I'm shocked in my head, because education was such an important piece for her. And I remember you all, I was like a latchkey kid, you all going, to night to school at night and going to college, so that the point of you all making that effort, whether or not a degree came from it, for her was solidified. Like, I knew that I had to go to college. Like, it was not a question as to whether I was going to be doing that or not.
I think that was drilled into you from early. So there wasn't any choice about going to college, because it was always, if I couldn't achieve college, you had to pass me in terms of what you did. Yeah. And I'm very happy that you did. I mean, that was like a big, big, big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about mommy at work, right? So this, other than my kind of connection, I knew a lot of her coworkers, because I would call and they knew who I was, and they would say how proud they were of the things that I was doing. So I knew that she talked about me a lot. And then I learned a lot from them after she died. Mm-hmm. But mommy would tell me also about the things that were happening at work. And I don't know how deeply, I should say, she didn't really talk deeply about some of the challenges or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I knew she was really proud of and she took a lot of pride in showing up in her job. And so I don't know how much you want to add about that.
Yeah. So you talk about the dressing. Mm-hmm. Casual Corners was a store I think it was in the World Trade Center, and she would come home with suits.
And learners. And Taylor Loft.
She had a ton of suits, and it spoke to how she wanted to show up. Okay. So people saw her, and they saw her what they call dressed to the nines. She was always put together, because she could always, this, and she would always look fantastic. Mm-hmm. I mean, going to church on Sunday morning, it was like, wow. I mean, she was just immaculate in the way and very purposeful in the way how she put herself together and what she showed the world of who she was.
100%.
Now, in terms of the work, she rose quickly in the company she was in, despite the fact she didn't have a degree. What she did have was a brain that was incredible, and she caught on to a lot of stuff that a lot of other people didn't. And I mean, at one point, she was offered jobs by some of the companies that were servicing her company, because she knew the system as good as some of their engineers, because she was just that good. And she knew how to manipulate the system in ways that they didn't know was possible. And like I said, they offered a job, but you can't do that when, especially these are the kind of job where you go someplace for 6 months or whatever. You can't do that when you have little kids. So, that avenue was open to her, but she was very proud of how far she'd come in the company. And I think she was always a little mindful of the fact that she didn't have a degree to say, this is what I have. But she was something else in terms of her ability and how she did her job. And I think what we saw at home in terms of somebody who could manage the house and do these things, that was taken to the job, and she did. She managed in a really wonderful way that her people absolutely loved her, and they cherished her because she treated them really well. And in fact, a lot of them are very, very loyal to her because she treated them and gave them opportunity to grow.
Yeah. The folks who she worked with, a lot of the things that they said about her, subsequently after she died, was about how she mentored them and she cared about them personally, not just at work. And, and I think that kind of impact in the workplace, especially when we think about workplaces now where people don't stay for long times, or or people leave because the culture is terrible. They say people don't leave places, they leave people. And so you have someone who really cares about you and your growth, I really love that work ethic that, I think, to your point, was home and work, and it was sort of seamless in that way.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Thank you for listening to this special episode of Branding Room Only. I hope it gave you a fuller sense of who my mother, Joan Donna Griffith, really was. Not just the headlines or the loss, but the joy, the wisdom, the power of who she was in our lives. Grief doesn't fade, it evolves. And legacy isn't just about how someone dies. It's about how they lived and how their life continues to echo through the people they've touched. If you've lost someone, I hope this reminds you to speak their name, share their stories, and honor their light. And if you haven't said I love you to someone important lately, now might be the time. We'll continue this conversation next week in part 2, where my father and I reflect on September 11th, the day we lost her, and everything that came after. I hope you'll join me for that. As always, thank you so much for being a part of this community. Subscribe, share the podcast, and most importantly, stand by your brand and the people who help build it. And if this episode resonated with you, and I hope it did, I'd be grateful if you take a moment to rate and review the show at ratethispodcast.com/branding. Again, ratethispodcast.com/branding. It will help more people find the show, and it means a lot to me. Until next time, stand by your brand.